Picture this: December 20th, 1968, a Friday night, Lake Herman Road, a quiet, dark stretch of road just outside Vallejo, California. It's cold, the road is deserted, no streetlights, just darkness and the sound of wind rustling through the hills. A car pulls off the road into a gravel parking area overlooking the lake. Inside are two teenagers, Lou Jensen, 16 years old, David Faraday, 17. They're on their first date. They've been to a concert. Now they're parked, talking, enjoying the view and each other's company. It's peaceful, quiet. They have no idea they're being watched. Another car pulls up behind them. The driver gets out. He walks toward their car. Lou and David don't know him. They don't know what he wants. He raises a gun, a .22 caliber pistol. Without warning, without a word, he fires. David is shot in the head. He slumps over. Lou panics. She opens her door and runs. She makes it about 30 feet before the killer catches up. He shoots her 5 times in the back. She falls to the ground. The killer walks back to his car. He drives away, calm, methodical, no witnesses, no one hears the shots. A passing motorist finds the bodies a few minutes later. He calls the police. By the time they arrive, David is dead. Lou is still alive, barely. She dies en route to the hospital. The police investigate. They find shell casings, they find tire tracks, but no fingerprints, no witnesses, no leads. It looks like a random act of violence, a senseless murder. The case goes cold. But 6 months later, the killer strikes again, and this time he does something different. He sends a letter to the newspapers, to the police. He tells them he killed Lou and David, and he tells them he's going to kill again. He signs the letter with a symbol, a circle with a cross through it, like a gun sight, like a crosshair. He calls himself the Zodiac. And over the next 6 years, the Zodiac killer will terrorize the San Francisco Bay Area. He will murder at least 5 people, possibly more. He will send taunting letters to newspapers. He will create complex coded messages. He will play games with the police and the media. And he will never be caught. This is the story of the Zodiac killer, the unsolved mystery that has haunted investigators, obsessed amateur sleuths, and fascinated the public for over 50 years. Who was he? Why did he kill? And why, after decades of investigation, has no one been able to identify him? Let me take you through the case, from the first murder to the last confirmed kill, from the cryptic letters to the suspects, and from the investigation then to the search for answers today. The Zodiac Killer, 1968 to 1974, the mystery that refuses to die. Before we dive into the murders, let's set the scene. The late 1960s and early 1970s, the San Francisco Bay Area. It's a time of change. The counterculture movement, hippies, protests. The Summer of Love was 1967. Haight-Ashbury is famous, but by 1968, the idealism is fading. The Vietnam War is raging. Martin Luther King Jr. and Robert Kennedy have been assassinated. There's tension, unrest, fear. San Francisco and the surrounding areas, Vallejo, Napa, San Francisco itself are vibrant but edgy. Crime is a concern. Serial killers aren't yet a widely understood phenomenon. The term serial killer won't be coined until the 1970s. When the first murders happen, police don't immediately connect them. Random violence isn't uncommon, but when the letters start arriving, everything changes. Because the Zodiac killer doesn't just kill, he communicates, he taunts, he makes it a game, and that's what makes him different from other criminals of the era. He's not just a murderer, he's a showman. Let's go back to that first attack. December 20th, 1968, Lou Jensen and David Faraday. Lou was a sophomore at Hogan High School in Vallejo. She was outgoing, popular, a cheerleader. David was a senior at Vallejo High. He was shy, studious, and honor student. They had been set up by friends. This was their first date. They went to a Christmas concert at her school. Afterward, they drove to Lake Herman Road, a popular lover's lane. It was a quiet spot where teenagers often went to park and talk. Around 11 p.m., another car pulled up. Investigators believe the killer parked behind them, approached on foot, and shot David through the window. He then chased Lou as she tried to flee, and shot her multiple times. A woman driving by discovered the scene around 11:15 p.m. She flagged down another driver, who called the police. The investigation turned up little. No one had seen another car. No one heard gunshots. The weapon was never found. The motive was unclear. Were they targeted? Was it random? The case went cold, but the killer wasn't done. 7 months later, July 4th, 1969, Independence Day, around midnight, Blue Rock Springs Park, Vallejo, another lover's lane. Darlene Ferrin, 22, and Mike Mageau, 19, were sitting in Darlene's car in the parking lot. They were talking, listening to music. A car pulled up next to them. The driver shone a bright light at them like a spotlight or a flashlight. Then the car drove away. Darlene and Mike were confused, but not overly concerned. Maybe it was a security guard or police officer checking on them. But a few minutes later, the car returned. It parked behind them. The driver got out and approached. He was holding a gun, a 9mm pistol. Without warning, he started shooting. He fired multiple shots through the window. Darlene was hit multiple times. Mike was shot in the face, neck, and body. The killer walked back to his car. As he was getting in, he heard Mike groaning. He turned around, walked back, and shot both victims again. Then he left. Mike, despite being shot 4 times, survived. Darlene died from her injuries. About 40 minutes after the attack, the Vallejo Police Department received a phone call. A man's voice, calm and controlled, said, "I want to report a double murder. If you will go 1 mile east on Columbus Parkway to the public park, you will find kids in a brown car. They were shot with a 9mm Luger. I also killed those kids last year. Goodbye." The call was traced to a payphone a few blocks from the police station, but by the time officers arrived, the caller was gone. The police now had a potential link. "I also killed those kids last year. Was this the same person who killed Betty Lou and David?" And then 3 weeks later, the letters started arriving. On August 1, 1969, 3 nearly identical letters were received by 3 Bay Area newspapers: the San Francisco Chronicle, the San Francisco Examiner, and the Vallejo Times-Herald. Each letter contained details about the murders that only the killer could know: the number of shots fired, the type of ammunition, the positions of the victims. And each letter contained a portion of a cryptogram, a coded message. The killer demanded that the newspapers print the cryptograms on their front pages. If they didn't, he threatened to kill again, going on a kill rampage, and targeting a school bus full of children. The letters were signed with a symbol, a circle with a cross through it, or a crosshair, the Zodiac symbol. The newspapers printed the cryptograms. The public was horrified and fascinated. Who was this person? What did the code say? A few days later, on August 4th, another letter arrived at the San Francisco Examiner. This one began with the now famous phrase, "This is the Zodiac speaking." It was the first time he used the name, and it would become his signature. The first cryptogram, known as the 408 cipher, because it contained 408 characters, was solved within a week by a local schoolteacher, Donald Hardin, and his wife Betty. The message, once decoded, was chilling. "I like killing people because it is so much fun. It is more fun than killing wild game in the forest, because man is the most dangerous animal of all. To kill something gives me the most thrilling experience. It is even better than getting your rocks off with a girl. The best part of it is that when I die, I will be reborn in paradise, and all the people I have killed will become my slaves. I will not give you my name, because you will try to slow down or stop my collecting of slaves for my afterlife." The message was disturbing. The Zodiac viewed his victims as slaves for the afterlife. He killed for pleasure, and he was taunting the police and the public. The media went into a frenzy. The Zodiac killer was front-page news. Everyone was talking about him, and he loved the attention. 2 months after the Blue Rock Springs attack, the Zodiac struck again. This time the attack was different, more personal, more terrifying. September 27, 1969, a Saturday afternoon, Lake Berryessa, a large reservoir in Napa County, about 30 miles north of Vallejo. Brian Hartnell, 20, and Cecilia Shepard, 22, were students at Pacific Union College. They were having a picnic on a small peninsula by the lake. It was a beautiful day, quiet, peaceful. Around 4:30 p.m., a man approached them. He was wearing a bizarre costume, a black executioner's hood, with a clip-on sunglasses covering eye holes, and a bib-like garment over his chest. On the bib was the Zodiac symbol, a circle with a cross. He was holding a gun. Brian and Cecilia were terrified. The man spoke in a calm, almost monotone voice. He told them he was an escaped convict. He needed their car and money to get to Mexico. He claimed he wouldn't hurt them if they cooperated. He ordered Brian to tie up Cecilia with a rope. Then he tied up Brian. Both were lying face down on the ground, bound hand and foot. Brian tried to talk to him, to reason with him, to keep him calm. But then the man said something that made Brian's blood run cold. "I'm going to have to stab you people." The Zodiac pulled out a knife. He stabbed Cecilia first. She screamed. He stabbed her multiple times, 10 times in the back. Brian, helpless and tied up, tried to shield her. The Zodiac turned on him and stabbed him 6 times in the back. Then the killer calmly walked away. He stopped at Brian's car, pulled out a marker and wrote on the car door, "Vallejo. December 20th, 68. July 4th, 69. September 27th, 69, 6:30. By knife. It was a confession, a list of his crimes, the dates of the Lake Herman Road and Blue Rock Springs attacks, and now this one. Then he called the Napa Police Department from a payphone. In the same calm voice he reported, "I want to report a murder. No, a double murder. They are 2 miles north of park headquarters. They were in a white Volkswagen Carmen Ghia." He then left the phone hanging and walked away. A fisherman found Brian and Cecilia. They were both still alive. Paramedics arrived. Brian survived his injuries, but Cecilia, despite surgery and 2 days of fighting, died from her wounds. Brian was able to give a description of the attacker: white male, approximately 5'8" to 6 tall, stocky build, dark brown hair. The hood made it impossible to see his face clearly. The attack was chilling. The Zodiac had escalated. This wasn't a quick shooting from a distance. This was up close, personal, sadistic. And he wasn't done. 2 weeks later, October 11, 1969, the Zodiac killed again, this time in San Francisco. The victim was Paul Stain, a 29-year-old cab driver. He was working the night shift for Yellow Cab. Around 9:30 p.m., someone, presumably the Zodiac, hailed Stein's cab in the Union Square area. The passenger asked to be taken to the Presidio Heights neighborhood. When they arrived at the intersection of Washington and Cherry Streets, the passenger shot Stein once in the head with a 9mm pistol. Stein died instantly. The killer then did something unusual. He tore off a piece of Stein's shirt. This would later become a key piece of evidence, a trophy and proof that the letter writer was indeed the killer. After shooting Stein, the Zodiac calmly exited the cab and began wiping down the interior, presumably to remove fingerprints. But he was interrupted. 3 teenagers across the street had seen the shooting. They called the police. Dispatch sent out a description. Suspect is a white male adult, approximately 5'8", wearing glasses, a dark jacket. But there was a crucial error. A dispatcher mistakenly told responding officers that the suspect was a black male. When 2 patrolling officers saw a white man walking away from the area, heavy-set, glasses, calm, they didn't stop him. They drove past, looking for a black suspect. The man they saw was almost certainly the Zodiac. He walked just a few blocks and disappeared into the night. It was the closest police ever came to catching him, and they missed it because of a miscommunication. 3 days later, on October 14th, the San Francisco Chronicle received a letter from the Zodiac. Inside was a piece of Paul Stein's shirt, blood-stained fabric proving he was the killer. The letter mocked the police. "School children make nice targets. I think I shall wipe out a school bus some morning, just shoot out the front tire, and then pick off the kiddies as they come bouncing out." He also described walking past the police officers who didn't stop him, calling them the dumb cops. The city was terrified. Parents kept their kids home from school. Police began riding school buses as protection. The Zodiac had successfully created mass panic. After the Stein murder, confirmed Zodiac killing stopped, but the letters continued. Between 1969 and 1974, the Zodiac sent multiple letters to newspapers, sometimes including cryptograms, sometimes boasting, always taunting. Some notable letters. November 1969, a letter with another cryptogram, the 340-character cipher known as SIT 340. It would remain unsolved for 51 years. April 1970, a letter claiming responsibility for an attempted bombing and including a new cipher, the "My Name is Cipher Z13, which remains unsolved. October 1970, a Halloween card sent to journalist Paul Avery, who had been covering the case. It contained threats. March 1971, a postcard claiming a victim count of 17+. Investigators have never confirmed any additional Zodiac victims beyond the 5 confirmed. 1974, the last confirmed Zodiac letter sent in January. After this, the letters stopped, and so did the case. The Zodiac killer was never identified. He was never caught, and over 50 years later, his identity remains a mystery. Over the decades, investigators and amateur sleuths have identified dozens of potential suspects. Some were strong, some were weak, but none were ever definitively proven. Here are the most prominent suspects. Arthur Lee Allen is considered the prime suspect by many. He was a convicted child molester living in Vallejo. Multiple circumstantial pieces of evidence pointed to him. A friend reported that Allen had talked about hunting humans and calling himself Zodiac before the first letters were sent. Allen wore a Zodiac brand watch with the crosshair symbol. He was ambidextrous, which could explain inconsistencies in the Zodiac's handwriting. He owned weapons similar to those used in the attacks. He lived near the crime scenes. Police searched his home in 1991 and 1992, but found no definitive proof. DNA and handwriting samples didn't match. Allen died in 1992, still a suspect but never charged. Richard Gaikowski was a newspaper editor and journalist. Some believe his handwriting closely resembled the Zodiac's. He lived in the Bay Area during the killings. A friend claimed Gaikowski confessed to him, though this claim is disputed. Lawrence Kane suffered a brain injury in a car accident, which some theorized could have triggered violent behavior. He lived near some of the victims and resembled police sketches. Darlene Ferrin's sister claimed Kane had harassed Darlene before her death. Ross Sullivan worked at a library near one of the crime scenes. He had a history of mental illness and violent tendencies. He resembled sketches and was ambidextrous. Earl Van Best Jr. was proposed as a suspect by his own son in a 2014 book. The evidence is largely circumstantial and disputed by most investigators. Gary Francis Post was identified in 2021 by a group called the Case Breakers, who claimed forensic evidence, photos, and witness statements pointed to him. Post died in 2018. The FBI and Vallejo police have not confirmed this claim. Despite decades of investigation, no suspect has been definitively confirmed. The Zodiac's identity remains unknown. One of the Zodiac's most infamous tactics was his use of ciphers. He sent 4 main cryptograms. Z408 1969, solved within days. The message was disturbing, but at least police knew what he was saying. Z340 1969, this was the Zodiac's second major cipher. For 51 years, it remained unsolved. Cryptographers, code breakers, amateur sleuths, supercomputers, all failed to crack it. Then in December 2020, a team of 3 amateur code breakers, David Orenchak, Jarl Van Eyck and Sam Blake, finally solved it using advanced software and painstaking analysis. The message read, "I hope you are having lots of fun in trying to catch me. That wasn't me on the TV show, which brings up a point about me. I am not afraid of the gas chamber because it will send me to paradise all the sooner, because I now have enough slaves to work for me." It referenced a TV appearance where someone claimed to be the Zodiac they weren't, and it reiterated his disturbing belief about slaves in the afterlife. Z13 and Z32, these shorter ciphers remain unsolved. Some believe they may not even be real ciphers, just random symbols meant to waste investigators' time. The ciphers show the Zodiac's intelligence, his need for attention, and his desire to control the narrative. So why did the Zodiac stop? After 1974, no more confirmed letters, no more confirmed killings. Several theories. He died. Accident, illness, suicide, or natural causes. If Arthur Lee Allen was the Zodiac, he died in 1992. If Gary Post was, he died in 2018. But we don't know. He was imprisoned for another crime. Maybe he was caught for something unrelated and has been in prison ever since, unaware that police haven't connected him to Zodiac. He moved. Maybe he left the Bay Area and continued killing under a different name or method. He stopped killing. Some serial killers do stop. Maybe he aged, lost interest, or found another outlet. He was satisfied. The Zodiac craved attention. By 1974, the media coverage had died down. Without the spotlight, maybe the game wasn't fun anymore. We may never know. The Zodiac case is still open. The Vallejo Police Department, the San Francisco Police Department, and the FBI continue to investigate. In recent years, advances in DNA technology, particularly genetic genealogy, the method that caught the Golden State Killer in 2018, have given investigators new hope. In 2018, police announced they were using cutting-edge DNA analysis on evidence from the Zodiac case, but as of 2024, no definitive match has been announced. The problem is contamination. The evidence is over 50 years old. It's been handled by dozens of people. Extracting usable DNA and ruling out contamination is difficult. But hope remains. Someday technology may finally identify the Zodiac killer. 2 people survived confirmed Zodiac attacks, Mike Mageau and Brian Hartnell. Mike Mageau, shot 4 times at Blue Rock Springs, survived and has lived a relatively private life. Over the years he's participated in some investigations and interviews. In 2021 he identified Gary Francis Post from a photo as resembling the man who shot him, but this has not been confirmed. Brian Hartnell, stabbed 6 times at Lake Berryessa, also survived. He became a lawyer and has spoken about his experience in documentaries. He's been remarkably composed, but the trauma of that day never left him. Both men waited decades for answers, and they're still waiting. The Zodiac killer has become a cultural phenomenon. Movies, books, TV shows, documentaries, podcasts, everyone wants to solve the mystery. The 2007 film Zodiac, directed by David Fincher and starring Jake Gyllenhaal, is considered one of the best depictions of the case. Hundreds of books have been written. Thousands of online sleuths debate theories on Reddit, forums, and websites. Why the obsession? Because it's unsolved. Because he was so brazen. Because he played games. And because somewhere out there, maybe he's still alive. Maybe he's reading about himself. Maybe he's laughing. The Zodiac Killer terrorized the San Francisco Bay Area from 1968 to 1974. He murdered at least 5 people. He claimed to have killed 37. He sent taunting letters. He created complex codes. He threatened children. He mocked the police. And he was never caught. Over 50 years have passed. Hundreds of suspects, thousands of hours of investigation, advanced DNA technology, and still we don't know. Who was the Zodiac? Was it Arthur Lee Allen, Gary Post, someone else entirely, or someone whose name has never even been mentioned? Maybe we'll find out. Maybe advances in technology will finally solve the case, or maybe the Zodiac Killer will remain what he's always been, a ghost, a mystery, a cipher that can't be cracked. December 20th, 1968, Betty Lou and David, the first victims. October 11th, 1969, Paul Stein, the last confirmed victim. January 1974, the last letter. And then silence. The Zodiac Killer, the most infamous unsolved serial killer case in American history, 1968 to 1974, 5 confirmed murders, dozens of suspects, 50 years of mystery. And still no answer to the question, who was the Zodiac?